I've realized that I don't need to be married to be happy. I think. I just want somebody to, like, enjoy existing around me forever. Like, don't leave me. Just like you, me, let's go to a cottage. Let's just live together. We don't gotta do nothing. We don't gotta do nothing romantic-ish. I just want somebody to enjoy my company for the rest of my life, you know? And typically, that's like, get married. But also, I don't need that, I think. Am I in denial? Maybe. Do I care? No.
I really wish women would stop getting married.
True, but there are two caveats. Number one, if you want kids, you better get married. At least give the kids a chance to be raised in a two-parent household so they don't grow up with a ton of issues. And number two, if he's rich. If he's going to add value to your life, of course, get married. I'm not saying you shouldn't have your own money. Absolutely have that, but don't be a dummy. If he's wealthy and he can make your life better and he can open doors for you, etc., then yeah, get married. Oh, but he's going to cheat. All men cheat. Oh, but I'd just be like a trophy wife. So what? Take that time, make your own connections, step up, go up the ladder, etc.
I do not want to get married. Don't get me wrong, marriage can be amazing for mutual support, raising kids, and creating a family. I'm not against marriage as an institution yet. For myself, I feel like a life partner is more than enough. I don't need papers or documents to prove my love or their love. It's actually even better because if we keep choosing each other after many, many years, that means the love is enough.
I know the TikTok sheikhs are gonna come for my neck, but I don't really believe in marriage. Not in modern day, at least, because I would say that the majority of the time it doesn't work out. And even when it doesn't end in divorce, it ends in absolutely hating and resenting each other towards the end of life. And the reality is that in most marriages, women get the short end of the stick. Like, women are the ones who have to sacrifice their careers, their health, their well-being to take care of their husband and the children. And in modern days, a lot of women are still working at the same time as doing all of that other stuff that has always been an obligation for women. I'm not like a psychopath, so there's still a part of me that like craves it. Like, I yearn for it, but logically, I just don't really care for it because I don't think that it's gonna benefit me, honestly. I feel like it's actually going to stunt my growth. It's going to stunt my career. It's just going to stunt me in so many ways, and I'm going to grow to hate that person. I didn't have to be in a marriage to have observed that in literally hundreds of marriages of the people around me. There's also a part of me that's just skeptical about the idea of being with one person for the rest of your life. And because so many people go into marriages with such high expectations, like they think it's going to significantly improve their lives, and then they're like quickly humbled within the first few years of marriage. I just feel like that actually sets people up for even more pain and heartbreak, because society and just like our families have raised us to glorify marriage or to see it as like our end all be all purpose in life. And when you are disappointed by that, you just it leaves you lost and broken and confused. Yes, there's still a part of me that like yearns for it. I do feel lonely every once in a while, but I know that I'm better off alone. And I'm more so in the mindset of like, if it happens, but it'd have to be like the most ideal situations. Otherwise, I just don't think that it's worth the time and effort and pain. Not to mention, in marriage, a lot of women's needs and their how can I say this without pissing people off? Their desires are very rarely met. There's that aspect of it that actually leaves women feeling very frustrated. And then when they're not satisfied in their marriages, a lot of times the men will then go seek out other women because they can't satisfy their wife. Like, I just can't. Why would I put myself through that? I've seen far too many marriages that have failed, or if they haven't entirely fallen apart, they leave, at least the woman for sure, just feeling so broken and regretful of even getting into the marriage in the first place. Like, most of our moms and aunts and everybody, they're miserable in their marriages and they regret marrying the men that they married. So part of it is also just like the fact that they didn't choose well, but like, that's the reality for most women. Man, the sheikhs are gonna come for my neck.
And white women were raised to believe that their biggest accomplishment was getting married. It still is. From movies to marriage, family traditions, the message was very clear. A wedding ring was the ultimate stamp of approval for them. They were taught that being a wife and a mother defined their worth, while their ambitions, talents, and independence were often pushed to the side. And it's still that way. Society created this idea that a woman wasn't complete until she was married, which made many women, white women, feel pressured to settle down, even in college. That's why you see them getting married early, even if marriage didn't actually serve them. But today, things are changing. Women have autonomy. Women have choices. White women have the social and economic freedom to choose very differently. And they are. They can pursue careers, travel the world, start businesses, and live their life on their own terms without being tied to a marriage. And a lot of them taking that option, okay? Marriage is not plan A, B, C, or D, okay? They are showing that their value isn't locked into being somebody's wife. Instead of chasing the old happily ever after that people think they should, more women are realizing that they can write their own stories. That's black and white women, but a lot of white women these days too. And that choice itself is a form of power.
Did you know that being childless and husbandless is actually one of the most powerful things you can be as a woman? Yeah. And I'll say that again because I know it's going to ruffle some feathers. But the feathers need to be ruffled because for all the young women out there, myself included, who felt or have felt or are feeling like they are behind in life because they do not have a husband, they do not have children, did it ever occur to you, my love, that maybe there are better and bigger things that God is trying to do in your life right now? And maybe he wants you to focus on your relationship with him. That's the man you need to invest into God. Because it's not like I don't ever want a husband and kid. Maybe one day. I was always the woman, I'm telling you, my whole life dream and goal centered around a husband and marriage and children. And, you know, God put it on my heart at the beginning of this year that maybe God has bigger and better for me waiting. And I don't need the husband and children to get that. Maybe I can do that all by myself with God's help. Men are great, you know, like if you find one that treats you well and makes life better, by all means, babe. And if you are married and if you do have children, I hope that you are living in your blessing, in the blessing that you have prayed for, because that's all we ever want. But I am just trying to encourage the young woman watching this video that has just dreamt and hoped and prayed as a little girl until she grew up to have this husband and kids. And babe, there is so much more in life to that. I promise you. And if it's meant to be, it's going to be. Okay? So just chill out. But there's a reason why the rich auntie that has no kids is happy, stress-free, and living her best life. Right, because she has no kids.
At what age do you decide you just don't care if you get married or have a boyfriend anymore? Because I'm so blessed. Like, life is so good. I literally am like, la 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 through life. And then a random thought will be like, well, you haven't had a boyfriend in 6 years. Bro, you're not going to be a young mom because you're not even married yet. And I'm like,
this is my scolding hot take, and you're either going to be ready to hear this or you're not going to be. Women historically have been slaves. I understand there's different forms of slavery, but women, in the true definition of the word, have been enslaved. Marriage was the act of making women property. Marriage was the way of exchanging women as property. Marriage was the property transfer of a woman between her father and her husband. Regardless of how you feel about it, that's the fact. That was the origination, the original purpose of marriage as a construct. The reason why you see divorce rates rise is because women finally have agency over whether or not we stay in these marriages. The reason why you're seeing marriage rates and birth rates decline is because for the first time in human history, women have had more agency than we've ever had on whether or not we get married in the first place and whether or not we decide to have children. There is a reason why women have been socially conditioned into believing that if we don't have children, or if we're not married, or a man didn't choose us, that's like the biggest insult to our identity or our value as human beings. I personally disagree with the entire construct of marriage. I believe that marriage signifies the ownership of women, and I disagree with it as a concept as a whole. And if you're not new to my page, you know that I have no intention of ever getting married. I relish in the idea of being single. I do not want to have any children. And I relish in the idea that for the first time, I'm one of the first generations of women who have the freedom to not participate in any of those things. So to me, not only is it not an insult to my identity and does not dictate my worthiness as a human being, it is a privilege that I get to choose not to get married. It is a privilege that I get to choose not to have children. And I believe that as a woman, you should avoid getting married. You should avoid having children. I think if you are even remotely on the fence about any of those concepts, you need to avoid it. Marriage benefits men, and having children benefits the patriarchy. I'm not saying that no one should have children, or that's where it gets kind of like muddy. Like, I think that marriage does have protections for women who do want to have children, or for women who are with a partner who's great. There are legal protections around that marriage works in favor for. But as a general concept, I think marriage represents the enslavement of women. I think marriage represents, and this is just the way it is. This isn't my opinion. This is what it's been historically. Marriage represents the ownership of property that is women. Marriage is a huge deal, and especially as a woman, if you are at all on the fence about getting married, you need to not get married. Fuck the soft life shit. Fuck the not doing anything with your life. Fuck not making your own money. You need to make your own money. That is a privilege. That is a blessing that you live in a time where you can make your own money and you can make something out of your own life. Do not trade this privilege that women have fought for a G-Wagon or for trips to Erewhon. You are worth so much more than that. Your life is worth so much more than that. You live in a time unlike any other in human history. There are women before you who would have given anything to be able to have the opportunities that you have today. They would have given anything. If you marry a rich man, your life will be controlled by him. Your quality of life is going to be dictated by that man. Your relationship may look a certain way today, but it could be very different 10 years from now. It could be very different after you have 4 of his children. It's not worth the Chanel bags. It's not worth the Cartier bracelets. It's not worth the fancy vacations. This is your one life. This is your independence. This is your autonomy. Please just think very long and hard before you enter these contracts, because getting out of marriage, going through a divorce, is a fucking grueling process. Co-parenting with somebody who is being difficult, who is trying to control you, is a all-consuming process. You need to really understand what you're signing up for. when you do that.
Right.
This is not something that you do unless you are absolutely sure. Again, it's super nuanced, and there are legal protections that work in women's favor when it comes to marriage. But if I were to give you any kind of advice, avoid getting married, make your own money, do your own thing with your life. Do not put all your eggs in the basket of a man. Because once you get married and once you have those children, everything is different. You do not have that same freedom anymore. You will not have that same opportunity anymore. You can still make it happen. And there are women who their children are like the best thing. It's like, I totally understand. I respect that. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's going to be very hard and it's going to be very different. Being single and childless is a fucking flex. Okay? It is. It's much better than being in a grueling divorce, being in an unhappy marriage, being controlled by a man, or having to co-parent with someone who's fucking crazy. Please just take this seriously.
We've heard from the YT women. Okay. So for generations, white women were told that their greatest achievement was to secure a husband. Most women have been told that. This wasn't just a cultural suggestion. It was a social conditioning rooted in white patriarchy. Still, marriage was presented as the ultimate prize for women, but the way it was structured often put women in positions where they had little say, little financial independence, and little recognition beyond being the wife. In many ways, this system treated women like property that men could control, leaving them to carry the burden of home, children, emotional labor, while being denied the freedom to live full individual lives. That it is still like that to this day. We still have people trying to put women back into the kitchen. That's why the idea of being enslaved in marriage makes sense as a metaphor. That's why they say it. Under white patriarchy, a wife wasn't seen as an equal partner. Not to this day. She was an accessory to her husband's success. Her value was tied to how well she kept the home, raised the kids, and upheld his image. For many women, this meant suppressing their own ambitions and desires, silencing their voices. It wasn't love that defined these relationships, okay? It was obedience, submission, and sacrifice. And that dynamic kept women in a cage, disguised as a household. That is how women see it today. They understand it now. They understand it now. That's why they're not choosing to be wives these days. Now, not every man does this. Not every man fits this mold. Okay, let's make that clear. There are men who genuinely want partnerships, who don't view women as property, and who believe in equality. Okay? These men aren't threatened by a woman standing on her own 2 feet. In fact, they admire that. But even with these good men around, the larger culture of white patriarchy still tries to pressure these white women into giving up their independence for the role of the good wife. Christian nationalism, cutting off access to birth control and abortion and all of those things, trying to take women back. And too often women are tempted to trade that freedom for the false sense of security in marriage. Let me marry a rich man. Let me get his money. Let me lay on my back. I ain't got to do no work. Only to these women find out later on that the bargain was never fair. Okay, the truth is, autonomy is a priceless thing. White women today have more choices than their mother or their grandmother, even me. They got more choices than I had. Okay? They can vote, earn money, own property, and build entire cities and lives without a husband nowhere in sight. To hand over that kind of freedom to a difficult man, a man who don't know how to treat me like an equal, a man who don't want me to have autonomy, who doesn't see me as an equal, is a crazy trade. It's like swapping your wings for a cage because society told you cages are safe. Get the fuck out of here. Once inside that cage, it's hard to break free. And many women end up living lives they never truly wanted. Being a wife under white patriarchy has often meant taking on the role of a servant in your own home. You manage the house, you raise the kids, you keep the peace, and absorb the emotional weight while your husband gets the credit for being the provider. This imbalance leaves many white women exhausted, resentful, and feeling invisible. This is why the divorce rate is so high. It's not that marriage itself is evil. No, that's not what I'm saying. It's that the system of marriage in white society and black society was built on inequality, designed to benefit men far more than women. Calling it enslavement isn't an exaggeration. You keep saying, they think I'm a slave, they think I'm a slave. Yeah. It's a reflection of how power and control have historically played out. That's why white women today have to guard their autonomy carefully. The privilege of freedom wasn't handed to us easily, black or white women easily. It was fought for by women before us, who broke away from these chains. Trading this kind of freedom for the role of slave wife under a patriarchal system is like undoing all that progress. That's why the turning or the overturning of Roe versus Wade was so devastating. The challenge now is to demand partnerships that honor equality and to never settle for a dynamic that reduces them to property ever again. Because at the end of the day, okay, a marriage that costs you your independence isn't about love. It's about bondage dressed up in a white wedding gown.